Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Charles from the channel Books on Stereo, and I'm here to bring you probably one of my favorite authors writing currently right now. I have the Isla Olsen on my channel. If you haven't read her books, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but you need to change it because her books are absolutely amazing. And the first question I wanted to ask you is, how did you get started with writing romance? Were you always a romance reader?
I started reading romance actually pretty late. It wasn't until I was in my 20s.
Mhm.
And the reason I started reading it was because I was actually a fantasy author to begin with. And
Oh,
at the end of the day of writing fantasy, I kind of needed a bit of a break and just needed something to kind of wind down with. And that's how I got into romance. And how I started writing it was my second fantasy book. I was just having a massive writer's block, like
mhm.
just really not feeling it at all. So I decided to just have a bit of a break, switch up genres a little bit. And I experimented with a few different things. I did some mystery. I did some like a few other things, and then I did some romance. And I found that I actually really enjoyed writing romance, and I was actually kind of good at it. So that sort of I just kind of fell into it really.
Oh, that's amazing. So like now on my bucket list of books I want from you, we have to have a fantasy book that will hopefully come from you in the future. Like I'm calling it, it's going to happen. You have the fantasy background, so I was like, I need this book now.
Yeah, at one point, hopefully, I've got such a long list of contemporary books that I want to write. But hopefully, yeah, hopefully, one point in the future, I will get to do a fantasy because I do still really love fantasy.
That'd be really cool to see you branch off into that. But I did want to talk about your Love and Luck series because it seems like that is like the series that's like almost like the backbone for a lot of your other works. Like anytime I go like I read Suits and Seven, the first book in that series, I was like, oh wait, oh that's how they're connected. And like it's like this. I love seeing those cool connections and seeing this like family of like just like especially their group chats. So I was wondering how'd you come about this series because all the characters in this family and all their love interests feel so well developed. So did you already know the characters before going into the series?
Um, I did so kind of ironically, but when first started kind of developing the characters, I don't know if you've read book three and
Hmm.
Jake, the character of Jake, the cousin who's 16. Um, I actually was planning to write his book first, which he will get a book eventually.
Okay.
But because I was writing young adult fantasy at the time, I thought, oh, maybe I'll write a young adult book about this guy called Jake. And then when I decided to write adult fantasy, adult romance,
Hmm.
I was still really interested in this character. And I'm like, why don't I give him a really crazy extended family and write about all of them? And then I can write Jake's book once he's grown up. So that's sort of how that happened, and I developed the Callies from that. So
Hmm.
I think Jake's book's going to be very different to what I had originally planned, years ago. But
Hmm.
I still really love his character, and I'm looking forward to eventually writing that at some point in the next couple of years. But yeah, that's sort of how the Callies came to being.
Oh, that's amazing because I feel like anytime I read the books, I'm like thinking of like who future books are gonna be about. Because like anytime I like find like a little crumb, I'm like, oh wait, that's connected. Like that's like immediately I can call back to the book and that couple. And I'm like, but and like, I just love that about your work is like almost like finding like Easter eggs, like how they're all connected. So I just love that about I love the world that you created too, and I love how each of the books has like its own like kind of like kink almost a little bit. Like you have like a different theme for each of the couples, and I love how they're all so different but all feel very much like a part of the same series. I like how like in the first book, I think it's Declan's ex. I love how you give him a book with like his other brother, with Declan's other brother. So I just love
Yeah,
like those little tie-ins to the series as well. Like you don't forget any characters.
yeah, that was sort of a bit. I wasn't sure how that was going to go down as an ex boyfriend falling for another brother, but it seemed to work out okay. Yeah, so I just decided by that point that was book five, and I thought,
Hmm.
well, I've got a lot of people who are already existing fans of this series. I think they'll just read it anyway, and it turned out that that was actually one of my most popular books. Two Men and a Baby. So yeah, turned
The
out very
cover
well.
though, the cover, I saw that, I was like, ooh. I was like, one click. Because I started with that book and then I worked my way back. So I was like, oh, wait, he appears in book one. Because I mentioned Heath and Declan. I'm like, wait, let me go back and read their book. Because I just love that character so much. And that romance and like the baby. I like how, too, like you don't really fixate on labels in this series. Like you have a lot of characters who are bi, and it's very just natural. And there isn't a huge focus on the coming out narrative that you see a ton in MM. So I wonder, was that some of the things that you wanted to play with in this series as well?
Yeah, I think a bit. I mean, as you probably picked up on, I'm not a big like angsty sort of like I don't
Hmm.
focus too much on like high angst, high conflict, high tension. Like I like to keep it very mellow, focus on like the lighthearted aspects and stuff. And I just like to have supports like families and support systems that are totally, they embrace their coming out and their, and it's not a big deal. I like to think that that's hopefully we can get into a world where that's just the norm, where, people
Hmm.
like don't have to come out. It's just a, you know, why should this is just who you are. You shouldn't have to make an announcement. Like it should just be like completely normal, like natural. And that's sort of like what the world that I want to kind of create in my fiction, where it's just not a big deal at all.
Too, I was curious, did you always know that you were going to do group chats with the whole Kelly family? Because I think those are probably the most laugh out loud moments of them interacting with each other. And just like I can't remember which book it was. I think the sister was pregnant, and like they like I can't remember the book. It was like, and one of the brothers was coming out to the rest of the family, and they decided to time their news at the same time to throw everyone off. I love
Yeah,
that so much. Like, did you always knew that it was going to be a part of the books?
yeah. I think that one was book two. I think that I
Yeah,
did
I
that.
think so.
Yeah. I did that in book one, and then
Hmm.
it was just really popular. I decided to keep going with it, um, because it, book one obviously was the one where they were all kind of going crazy about Heath and Declan being in a
Hmm.
relationship, even though they weren't. And so I used that sort of crazy group chat dynamic, and then I thought, well, why not? Like these are clearly very gossipy sort of family. I guess like each brother can have something to that they'll have like big news or something like that at during the course of the book. So yeah, I decided to just keep going with it. Really.
And two, I do want to kind of touch on the audiobooks for this series because they are absolutely fantastic. How did that process kind of come about for this series? Did you always intended for them to go into audio?
Oh yeah, definitely. I always intended for that to happen. And I've been really lucky to work with a couple of really awesome narrators. So obviously Joel Leslie started off the series, and then he was originally just going to do the first two books, and then he wanted to take over the Royal and Reckless series. But when I floated the idea of co-narrating book three, because he was really intrigued by Jamie's character, the British guy. He was, yeah, okay, let's do that, and it'll be a bit of a handover to combine to like sort of ease people into the transition.
Hmm.
So now I'm going to do the rest of the Love and Luck series, which
Also,
will be
Michael Dean is taking over for the rest of the series.
yeah. So he's
Okay.
done book four, like
Hmm.
that recently came out, and he's working on book five at the moment.
So happy. Like the audiobooks for this, I'm sad to see Joel go, but when he said he's going to be taking over the Reckless and Royal series, that's probably my favorite book of yours. At like, and Love and Luck books are like really highly rated for me, but like the King and Jai, that book just like stole my heart. Like, I love the title play, and when I read it, I was like, oh wait, this is connected to one character's best friend, and it's actually set up in that book. And it took me a while to pick that up, but I was like, wait, I had to go reread the series. I'm like, oh, that's where that character popped up from. So where did that story kind of come on? Was it like a take on the King and I?
Yeah, it is a little bit. So I mean, obviously like there's like the Tudor kind of dynamic, and I was sort of like, obviously I came up with the title first, And then I was like, so what if the king and I, if they actually got together and no one died and there was a lot of sex in it? That's sort of like how it kind of happened with that one. But yeah, it was very, very, very loosely like adapted from the king and I.
Like I just love like the narration and your writing for the book because like Joel captures your character so well. That's what I was like I feel like I was just like watching a movie and I was like I can't stop listening to this audiobook. I didn't know it was gonna wreck me like it did because I was in love with the Love and Luck series. So I was like I was hard parting ways from that and trying out the King and Jai, but it was so incredibly good. So I was like I'm just like bowing down. Like I didn't think you could top that series, but like that one book, I was like, okay, where's book two? And I look on your website, I'm like, I see a cover, but like, where's the release date?
It's been coming for a while. It is coming soon. Yeah, originally it was supposed to be last year, and then I had to kind of just scrap it because
Mhm,
I rewrote it it ended up being twice that I rewrote it, and I was not happy with it.
mhm.
So I ended up moving on to other stuff, and now finally I'm going to. I sort of got to the point where I'm like, okay, it needs to happen because this book is set before Finn's book in the Love and Luck series. And I'm like, I need
Oh,
to get it out. And otherwise I won't be able to ever write Finn's book. So it's yeah, it's happening. Although I have actually had to change the cover recently,
okay.
because yeah, my old cover designer for that series has she's no longer designing covers. So I've changed designers and so if you the audio book for the King and Jai, that's the new cover, and so Three's a Crown will have a similar type
Similar
design.
cover.
I'll be revealing that in the next few weeks. Once my next book, so the second book in the Suits and Sevens series is coming out soon. Once that book's done, I'll do the reveal for Three's a Crown and get the pre-order for that up and everything. So it's
Yes.
happening soon.
For the second book in the Seven in Suit series, is it gonna be Pax's book?
No, it's going to be Sully's book.
No.
I know.
Like a little tease that we got, I was like, I'm like, I hope he gets a book. I hope it's the next book, but it isn't.
No,
That
he will get
hurts.
it at some
Okay.
point. I'm not sure. I haven't actually decided which order those books are going to be happening.
Hmm.
This will be the last Suits and Sevens book for this year. The rest will happen next year. So probably over the summer break, which is in December for Australia, I'll sit down and like really work out what order the books are going to come in. But for now, it's Sullivan's book up next, and for the same reason as the Three's a Crown, because it's set before Finn's book, and I need to get Finn's book out. So that's it. I just need to get these next two books out so that I can get to Finn's book. No, I feel as though if I don't get Finn's book out in the next few months, there's going to be a mutiny among my readers because they just want it so badly. So yeah, these two need to get out, and then I need to get Finn's book out at some stage within, I don't know, the next definitely the next few months. But I've got the
Hmm.
pre-order set up for the end of October, so that's
Hmm.
the absolute latest time that it can come out. So
That it can come out. So
yeah,
we have the pre-order to make sure like we're getting the book sometime
yeah,
this year.
yes, absolutely. I'm hoping it'll be out a bit earlier than that, but at the absolute latest, Finn's book is going to be out by the end of October.
So would you ever consider writing in a different world than centered around the Kelly clan? Or would you consider
Oh,
like fully branching out and away from that world? Or do you feel like you were going to continue to build out this world even further?
um, well, yes to both of them. um, I've already started a series that's set completely separate from the Callies. So the Good Life is set in a little town in California. It's another sort of like it's based around another crazy family, but it's not related to the Callies at all. And I also have a kind of little series of like short stories and novellas that are set at a resort in Aspen that are
Mhm.
Not very popular because they're very, very short. But they're just sort of they're for holiday romances that I've been sort of doing and like newsletter magnets and that sort of thing. So I'm not
Mhm,
too fussed that they're like, not selling hugely. But the Good
mhm.
Life is going pretty well so far. So that'll be I'll have a few more books out from that series this year. Um, and to the second part of your question, probably once I'm done with Love and Luck and Six and Sevens and Royal and Reckless, yes, I do plan to have another, which will be another alliterative title for the
Okay.
series. That's how you can tell that they're set in that world.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
but that'll be a couple of years away. I want to get through all of those series first before I start something new in that world.
You could like the world you created, it's so fascinating. The characters that you have in that world, I'm like, I would be fine if you just wrote in that world for like the next 5 years because I just love the characters so much.
Yeah, I no, I love the world and the characters, and I do want to keep writing in the world. Um, but I also, yeah, I do like branching out, and I like the fact that with the Good Life, for example, I don't have that sort of that it needs to be in a certain order based on the different
Hmm.
books. Like I've got the issue with the chronology in that the series that's related to the Callies. I can just do it in whatever order I want because it's not related. So that's like it's nice, having that sort of freedom.
To just like write whatever. If you want to write this character's romance, you could just go ahead and do it. You don't have to
That's right.
worry about does it fit my timeline if I publish this book before another one.
Yeah, exactly. That's like, if I want to publish like a book from the Good Life before I publish Finn's book, that's fine. If I want to do Finn's book
Mhm.
first, I can do that. Like it just depends on what I'm in the mood to write. So it's good because I'm not the best person for sticking to my schedule. Which is how I ended up starting a new series this year. When I was supposed to be working on um, Six and Sevens, that was my
Mhm.
my goal, was to finish Six and Sevens this year, and that obviously is not happening because I started this new series. But
Mhm.
it is what it is.
Hey, I'm happy. That just needs more books for us as the readers. I'm like, I'm completely fine if you get like sidetracked and you write two other books and start two other series, and we may have to wait for a little bit for Finn's book, a little bit. So I'm fine with that. Because I trust you with any book you write. I'm like, I don't even read the synopsis. I just like, okay, Kindle Unlimited, let's click it, download it, and read it, and experience the story that way.
Yeah. Well, luckily most of my readers are like that, so yeah, it's nice. Yeah, that they're so enthusiastic.
Yeah, and two, I wanted to ask you, are there any other different types of like subgenres within the romance genre that you would like to explore a little bit more?
Uh,
Paranormal? Would you want to do like sci-fi?
Yeah, I mean, I would at one point, at like some point in the future, I'd definitely like to do some fantasy. I've also
Hmm.
thought about doing historical fiction because I'm a massive history geek, and I
Me
do have an
too.
idea in my head for a historical fiction book, but that is something that's way down the future because it takes a lot of research and a lot of time to do a good historical fiction. And at the moment, it's just not like I just want to do the books that people are really loving and that I'm enjoying writing, and I just want to focus on those for the moment. But yeah, at some point I'd like to do that.
Oh, that's cool. That'd be cool to see if you branch out. But I love how your books are like such a ray of sunshine. Like they're funny, they're steamy. They're like no, I like how there's like zero to no angst. So I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I don't have to like deal with like the miscommunication trope, which irks me every time when something happens and they're like, oh no, I'm not talking to the other person for like 50 pages. And we're like, just talk to each other and you can resolve everything. So I just love how your books are just like a nice, fun, like kind of escapism reads. Like I really want to thank you for that as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do think that probably with everything that's been happening in the world, particularly last
Hmm.
year, people have definitely been looking more for that sort of like low angst, just fun
Hmm.
kind of books. So yeah, that's been good.
And then, do you plan to eventually put all your books in audio, not just the Love and Luck and Royal and Reckless series, but for like the Good series and the Suits and Seven series? Would you be putting those in
Yeah,
audio down the road too?
Yeah, definitely. Six and Sevens is already, it hasn't started production just yet, but I have lined up a narrator. I'm not going to be announcing who it is just yet. Yeah, no, I think people will be quite happy with it. It's definitely, this is one of my favorites. So that's what I tend to go with, narrators who I love listening to. So that's always a good sign, I think. Um, but yeah, he's starting next month on the first Six and Sevens book. So yeah.
So too, so we have Finn's book coming up this year. Are there any like others like secret projects that you have that are currently in the works that you haven't announced yet? Or is it
Uh,
like the pre-orders for
I
this year like are those like pretty much are guaranteed release, or are you gonna surprise us with another book?
so I've got yeah, so Mr. Right Now is coming out soon, then Three's a Crown. Then I'm not sure what order other books are going to be coming out, but there'll be a couple more from the Good Life series. Definitely Finn's book, Sex, Tries and Videotape. Uh, there is another one that's a secret project that I actually literally have to stay secret about because it's not just me, it's involving other authors as well. And
Ooh.
actually not until next year, but I need to finish it by this year. So, yeah,
Ooh. Okay.
you'll probably hear more about it towards the end of the year. But yeah, I need to have the book done this year, but it's not actually going to be released to readers until next year.
Oh, okay. I'm curious. Like, let me go through my romance, my romance brain to see like. But even then, I probably wouldn't be able to guess like the narrator
Yeah. Oh,
what
that's
it could be.
not an audiobook. That's a that'll be an ebook. That one.
Ooh, and is it like an anthology or like a? Can you say anthology or series?
I honestly have no
No.
what it is. It's I can tell you that it's something that hasn't been done before, and readers will absolutely love it. It's gonna be huge.
Oh
So,
wow.
but
So you
yeah,
guys get.
I can't tell you any more information. I'm sorry. It's yeah, sworn to secrecy.
Ooh, I wanted to ask you too about your process of writing the books. Do you have to understand the characters before kind of fitting the plot? 'Cause I feel like one of the things I love about your books is that almost very character driven, and the things that the characters get into feels very natural for those characters, and no book feels like you're just repeating a similar thing that you did in another book. So do you have to know the characters before you can build the plot, or do you already kind of have an idea for what you want the story to be and you kind of just fit the characters into it?
Um, a little bit of both. I mean,
Hmm.
I do. So I my writing process is very weird. I write out of order. So I'll write like I have kind of like a skeleton of what the book should be. So I list out my chapters and I divide them into like sections. So like and it'll
Hmm.
be a big moment should happen here, a big moment should happen there, blah blah blah. And I'll try to like fill in like plot events that should happen in each chapter and that sort of thing. But it's very loose, like it's not a proper outline.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll often start with, like maybe like chapter 18 before I get to chapter one. Like it's just whatever I feel like writing. And I think that often because I start towards the end of the book, I find that like I start with like where the character is at by the end, and then that way
Hmm.
I can go back to the start and go, okay, how do they get there? And that sort of
Hmm.
like helps me kind of figure out exactly what the character is, like what their motivations are. Sometimes because I know that they need to get to a certain point. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
well, what do they do to get to that point? And sometimes I need to throw in some other things to figure that out. Sometimes I end up changing my mind. It's just, yeah, it sort of figures itself out. But
Hmm.
yeah, and then other times, like I go into the book like having a really strong idea of what the character's going to be.
Hmm.
And then other times they kind of surprise me, and it sometimes is like because like one character might change what the like the two love
Hmm.
interests they might change what the other character is like. So it might need to like change to complement the other. And so like an example of that is like with the second Love and Luck book, Virtually Screwed.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, I thought that Blake was going to be like this really like dominant kind of character, like really sort of, like just
Uh-huh.
like that's what I thought he was going to be. And then he turned out to be like this massive teddy bear, like so kind and caring, and just because that's what Owen needed him to be. And that sort of was more like I spent a lot of time developing Owen's character, and Blake just kind of fed off that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that so sometimes that just happens, like it just happens naturally.
Well, I didn't know you were gonna because it reminded me when you said like you didn't want to do like the make him into like an alpha character and change Blake's character because in Will and the Suits and Sevens that went a direction I was like, whoa, I did not see this coming with that book, and I was like, now I need you to write more BDSM s kink in all
Yeah.
your books. Like I love when I saw like the line where it's like, what do you mean I may not like being tied up? I was like, what?
Well, that was sort of again, like with the like I originally when because I actually wrote half of the draft for Mr. Big Shot like years ago, like back. So it was like when I first, like I mentioned that I started doing like little bits of romance writing, like when I was started going through some writer's block, like that was, and I Mr. Big Shot was one of the kind of things that I was working on, and then I just kind of shelved it and worked on other things. And then I decided to go back to it after I'd like kind of weaved Will into the Love and Luck series. I'm like, okay, let's
Hmm.
go back to Big Shot and actually write this book. And originally Spencer was going to be like the dominant one, and then
That's what
I'm
I
like,
was thinking. And then you switched it. I was like, wait, what?
yeah, I was just like, hang on a minute. No, let's turn this around. Let's give people a surprise. And I was like, the reason for that was because, like, by this point, I had obviously read a lot more widely in the genre. And I'm like,
Mhm,
I've read so many books where the boss is the dominant character. I want to
mhm,
change it up a little bit. But I'd also, like, I knew that Will, like, in his, like, life, generally wasn't like super, super alpha, but
mhm,
I'm like, that doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to like have that particular role, like to have it in the
mhm,
bedroom. So that was like something I sort of I had to do like a lot of research on that to make sure that I kind of got it right.
mhm,
And that's sort of where, and in the end, like I think it really helped me to, like Spencer's character just completely changed from that original first draft that I did, but it did really help me kind of get in touch because I'm like what are some sort of reasons why someone might want to be submissive.
mhm,
And I went on to like a lot of Reddit forums and stuff like that, and like from read through people's experiences and stuff. And when I saw someone talking about like how they felt like they just needed to let go and whatever, I'm like, this is
mhm,
perfect. Like this is exactly how Spencer feels. And Yeah, it just seemed to really fit with the character that I wanted to turn him into, because that was I didn't want him to be like this total asshole. Like I just
mhm.
wanted him to to have this sweet side, particularly because people who had read like seen his character in the Love and Luck books already thought that he was an asshole, and I'm like, no,
Oh.
I want to give him a sweet side. So yeah.
And then this may be a hard question. So, what are some of your favorite romance books or authors?
Oh God, there are so many. um, okay, so I love rom-com, obviously.
Mhm,
And I probably when I first started reading romance, I read more MF rom-coms. So some
mhm,
of my and I still do read a lot of MF. Some of my favorites among those are like Tara Sivek, um,
mhm,
and Rachel Van Dyken, Lauren Blakely, who has also written some MM recently, which is great. And that's been really good. So those are probably my favorite MF. And MM, I mean, Lucy Lennox is
Hmm.
amazing. Like all of her books, I just absolutely love. Eden Finley is really good. Uh, May Archer, like just yeah, I love like all like the very like sort of lighthearted kind of books. I love like picking up a book and just knowing that I'm just gonna get a few laughs and it's gonna be really sweet. But then I also, which is a kind of a little bit weird, like in when I'm reading MF, I don't really like other kind of like it's only romantic comedy. I don't really like
Oh,
any
really?
any other type of romance really. I mean, I might occasionally read some paranormal romance or whatever, but when it comes to contemporary, it needs to be a romantic comedy. But in I'll read like a lot of more like darker sort of romance and stuff like that. I'll read suspense or I'm not sure why. I love it. Like so, Sloane Kennedy is another one that I really love.
Hmm.
Um, Alessandra Hazard. Yeah, I don't. There's a ton of them that. Yeah, Devon McCormack. Yeah, just a lot.
Amazing.
So many.
Like you mentioned, like pretty much all my other favorite authors. So I was like, we're on the same wavelength. Like now I can see why I love your books. I'm like, because we have the similar favorite authors. Would you actually ever consider going into the MF space with one of your books?
I am going to be doing an MMF book later.
An MMF?
Yeah, so Kate is getting a book that's going to be MMF. So I'm going to be doing that one. I don't know whether I will do an actual just MF book at any point.
Hmm.
I did plan to, but then
Hmm.
like the MM books took off, and I was just like, okay, let's just focus on this for a while, because it is quite like the when you start in a new genre, it's like a lot of work to kind of build that base and everything.
Hmm.
And I think if I was to go into MF, I would really need to like it would need to be like a whole series. I need to really focus on building like a whole new audience and everything like that. So
Hmm.
who knows, maybe in like 5 years or whatever, we'll wait and see. But at the moment, I've got so many ideas for or even like queer romance in general. Like going to be doing some non-binary as well, some trans that I'm hoping to do. So um, yeah, it's like yeah, definitely want to keep it sort of more like queer with
Hmm.
different partners, different sort of couplings. But yeah, I'm not sure about MF at this point, but maybe one day.
Thank you so much, Isa, for coming on my channel. I love talking to you and getting to pick your brain about what's upcoming next because I'm eagerly waiting. And since you are like an audiobook friendly author, I'm like, yes, I'm like, we're gonna need more audiobooks very, very soon from you. So I'm super excited about that. But for you guys, if you want to go purchase any of Isla's books, I'll leave links down below as well as pre-order links for any of her upcoming books. So definitely go one click away on Amazon. You will not be disappointed. Trust me, trust me. I highly recommend The King and Jai. That is my personal favorite. I love that book with all my heart. But you can start with the Love and Luck series and you will fall in love just as much as I have with the series. But thank you so much, Isa, for coming on my channel once again. And thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys with a brand new video. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.